Two people begin with the same meaningful goal. They are equally sincere. They are equally excited. They can both describe the future they want, and in the beginning, you cannot see much difference between them. Both make promises. Both take action. Both feel the energy that comes when a new possibility enters the mind. Then Tuesday arrives. Enthusiasm becomes quiet. Responsibilities become loud. A distraction appears. Fatigue settles in. An interruption rearranges the day. The first person says, "I will continue when I feel ready again." The second person has already decided what happens when readiness disappears. One waits for emotion to return. The other returns to a repeatable behavior. Watch this. The difference is not desire. The difference is government. Shared goals do not create shared results when daily behavior is governed by different rules. One life is governed by changing feelings. The other is governed by established principles. One person repeatedly begins. The other learns how to continue. Now be honest with yourself. Which pattern resembles your present life? Do you move mainly when inspiration rises? Do you keep restarting the same commitment with a new promise, a new burst of energy, and a new date? There is no shame in recognizing the pattern. Recognition is not condemnation. It is the beginning of correction. You are not being asked to deny your frustration. You are being invited to diagnose what governs you. Write this down. Consistent progress begins when behavior is governed by repeatable principles rather than changing emotion. I am going to give you 7 laws, not 7 disconnected tips, not 7 attractive statements to admire and forget. 7 connected laws forming one operating system. Purpose, planning, priorities, discipline, feedback, resilience, and faithful completion. Purpose determines direction. Planning prepares movement. Priorities protect attention. Discipline sustains action. Feedback enables correction. Resilience creates return. Faithful completion delivers the contribution. Each law strengthens the next, and a weakness in one can disturb the whole system. But understand the boundary. These laws cannot guarantee that every door will open, every market will respond, every person will cooperate, or every result will arrive exactly when you expect it. Principles do not control the entire world. They make your decisions more consistent, your responses more deliberate, and your progress less dependent on chance. So the question is not whether the two people wanted the same future. They did. The question is what definition of success taught one to build a system while the other kept waiting for a surprise. Success is not merely the moment something wonderful happens. That is an event. It may be celebrated, photographed, announced, and remembered, but an event cannot govern tomorrow morning. A favorable outcome may come once. A system tells you what to do again. Let me explain. A goal names the destination you desire. A system governs the repeated movement that carries you toward it. The goal says, "This is where I intend to go." The system answers, "This is how I will behave today, how I will examine my movement, how I will respond when disrupted, and how I will bring the work to completion." You need both. A destination without an operating pattern produces admiration without dependable movement. Activity without a destination produces motion without meaningful progress. So write this definition down. Success is the faithful, progressive execution of purpose through repeatable decisions. Notice the words. Faithful means you remain responsible to what you've been given to do. Progressive means movement can be real before the final result is visible. Execution means intention must become action. Purpose means the action serves a reason greater than temporary excitement. Repeatable decisions mean your next step is not reinvented every time your feelings change. Inspiration is valuable. It can awaken you, alert you, and help you begin. But inspiration is a spark. Structure carries the work after the spark has faded. Do not insult inspiration by asking it to perform a job it was never designed to perform. Feelings may initiate action, but they cannot be trusted to govern it. Say that to yourself. My feelings may inform me, but they will not govern me. This is why the 7 laws must remain connected. Purpose gives planning something to arrange. Planning gives priorities something to protect. Priorities give discipline a clear assignment. Discipline produces experience that feedback can examine. Feedback identifies the correction resilience must carry back into action. Resilience restores movement so faithful completion can deliver what purpose intended. Remove one law, and the next law receives less than it needs. That is a hierarchy, not a collection. It is action, review, recovery, and completion arranged around purpose. And remember the boundary. This system increases the predictability of your conduct, not the certainty of every external result. You cannot command every response, but you can establish your next faithful response. That is what made the second person's progress more manageable. Not control of the future, but order in the present. Now, every ordered system must answer its first question. What is all this movement for? Progress toward what? That is the question purpose must answer before effort can be called progress. Purpose is not a pleasant slogan placed above your activity. It is the governing reason the activity exists. It defines what must be accomplished, whom the accomplishment should serve, and what value must remain protected while the work is done. Write this principle down. If purpose is unclear, measurement becomes deceptive. You may count hours, tasks, meetings, messages, and miles. You may become faster, busier, and more exhausted. But speed cannot prove progress when direction has not been established. In fact, speed can multiply waste. The faster you travel in the wrong direction, the more distance correction will require. Imagine several people beginning a journey together. The engine is running. Everyone is active. One studies the map, another purchases supplies, another urges the driver to move faster, and somebody is already celebrating how far they have traveled. Then a simple question is asked. Where did we agree to go? Silence. They have movement, but no shared destination. Under those conditions, how could they determine whether a turn was wise? How could they know which road was useful, which delay mattered, or whether increased speed helped them? Activity can be counted without being evaluated. Progress requires a defined end. Are you listening? Purpose gives your effort the standard by which movement can be judged. It tells you what belongs and what does not. It helps you distinguish an opportunity from a distraction, a necessary sacrifice from needless strain, and productive work from impressive busyness. Now examine your own commitment with 3 questions. First, what must be accomplished? Not what would be nice to discuss, attempt, or announce. What definite result is this effort responsible for producing? Second, whom should it serve? Purpose has a beneficiary. Name the person, group, responsibility, or future condition meant to receive value from your labor. If you cannot identify who benefits, you may be protecting activity instead of fulfilling an assignment. Third, why is it worth sustained effort? This question reaches beneath excitement. What value makes continuation worthwhile when the work becomes repetitive, inconvenient, or unseen? A strong reason will not remove difficulty, but it will keep difficulty from rewriting the meaning of the work. Now combine your answers into one sentence. My purpose is to accomplish this outcome for these people because this value matters. Keep the sentence plain. Make it specific enough to guide a decision and meaningful enough to survive a difficult day. This is not decoration. It is the first input into the entire operating system. Every later milestone, priority, correction, and act of completion must answer to it. You now have a destination, but a destination without a route remains an intention. The next law must arrange the movement before pressure arrives. Planning is not writing down everything you hope to do. Planning is deciding in advance how purpose will enter time, sequence, and responsibility. It takes the purpose statement you have written and asks, what must happen, in what order, by whom, and by when? Write this principle down. A plan is purpose arranged in advance. Begin with the final outcome and work backward. What completed result would fulfill the purpose? Before that result can exist, which major milestones must be reached? Before each milestone, what must be accomplished this week? And beneath the weekly commitment, what is the next action that can be taken today? Outcome, milestones, weekly commitments, daily action. This is the planning ladder. It reduces a distant ambition into visible movement. Overwhelm often grows because the mind is attempting to carry the whole outcome at once. Planning gives each part its proper place. You do not have to complete everything today. You must know what today is responsible for. But watch this. A wish list names desirable activity An executable plan assigns action. Develop my career is a wish. Complete the first draft of my portfolio by Friday is a plan. Strengthen our family is a worthy intention. Hold a 30-minute family conversation after dinner on Thursday can be acted upon. Every meaningful task needs three things: a clear action, an owner, and a time boundary. What will be done? Who is responsible? When will it happen? If any one of these is missing, responsibility can hide inside ambiguity. Everybody agrees, nobody owns it, and eventually the promise becomes another item transferred to next week. Now suppose your purpose is to prepare for a new career opportunity while honoring your present responsibilities. The outcome may be a completed application. The milestones could include identifying requirements, preparing work samples, revising the resume, and submitting the materials. This week, you commit to selecting the work samples. Today, you reserve 40 minutes to review the first 3. Purpose has now entered the calendar. Then life interrupts. The meeting runs late. A family need appears. Energy falls below expectation. Does the plan disappear? No. A mature plan includes a minimum faithful action. If 40 minutes becomes impossible, perhaps 10 minutes remain possible. If the full review cannot be completed, one sample can still be evaluated. Contingency is not surrender. It preserves movement under imperfect conditions. Ask before pressure comes. When the ideal day is unavailable, what action remains available? Decide that answer now. You have converted a promise into appointments, responsibilities, and a next step. That produces practical hope because the future is no longer one enormous demand, it has sequence. Yet planning creates another problem. Several legitimate actions may now compete for limited attention. A plan tells you what could be done. The next law must determine what deserves to be done first. Several legitimate tasks now stand before you, but limited capacity means they cannot all come first. That is why priority is not another word for importance. Many things are important. A priority is the action that receives first claim on your limited time, energy, attention, or resources. First claim. Remember that if everything receives equal claim, interruption becomes your decision maker. Whatever arrives latest, speaks loudest, or creates the most pressure takes control. You remain busy, but purpose is forced to wait. A plan without priority is organized competition. Now confront the trade-off. Every yes creates a boundary around another demand. When you give an hour here, that hour cannot also be given there. When you offer focused attention to one responsibility, another responsibility must wait. You cannot avoid choosing. Refusing to choose deliberately simply allows urgency, habit, or other people to choose for you. What comes first in practice reveals what governs you in reality. So how do you rank actions that all appear legitimate? Use 3 filters. First, alignment with purpose. Which action most directly serves the outcome, people, and value you already identified? An activity may be good and still not belong at the front of this particular assignment. Second, consequence of delay. What becomes harder, costlier, weaker, or unavailable if it is postponed? Some tasks can move without serious damage. Others carry responsibilities that cannot be recovered once neglected. Third, relevance to the present season. What requires your attention now? A worthy action may belong in your future and still be wrong for your present capacity. Priority is not a declaration that everything else is worthless. It is a sober recognition that timing matters. Watch the conflict. A notification appears with sound, color, and urgency. At the same moment, a quiet commitment waits. Concentrated work, presence with family, careful stewardship, or an uninterrupted conversation. The notification demands attention immediately, but the quiet commitment may carry the greater consequence. Noise announces itself. Significance often does not. This is where busyness loses its excuse. You are not merely managing tasks. You are assigning your life's limited capacity. Ask which action is most aligned. What is the cost of delay? What belongs to this season? Now make one decision. Identify the purposeful action that deserves first claim, then deal honestly with what competes against it. Protect it, schedule it, delegate another demand, defer it to an appropriate time, or decline it without guilt. Say it plainly. This comes first now, so that must wait. Priority has now given discipline and assignment. But placing the right action first on paper is not enough. The next test arrives when the appointment begins and emotion no longer agrees with the decision. The appointment is protected. The time arrives. The task is clear. Then your feelings submit a complaint. This is where discipline begins. Discipline is not the feeling that helped you make a wise decision. Discipline is keeping that decision after the feeling has changed. It is a decision continuing to speak after emotion becomes quiet. Write that down. Your mood may change without receiving authority to cancel your commitment. Many people confuse emotional readiness with structural preparation. Emotional readiness says, I feel able to begin. Structural preparation says, I already determined when, where, and how I will begin. Readiness fluctuates. A protected structure can remain. You do not need to feel the same way at execution as you felt at decision. Now let me give you a 4-part protocol for difficult days. First, establish a visible start cue. Use a specific signal that tells your mind the appointment has begun. A particular time, a prepared workspace, an open document, or the first required material placed before you. Remove the need to debate how to start. Second, protect a work window. Give the chosen action a defined beginning and ending. During that period, competing demands do not receive casual access. Discipline is easier when the boundary has already been established. Third, define a minimum acceptable action. Ask, what is the smallest faithful step I will complete even when the day is difficult? This is not permission to become careless. It is protection against the lie that reduced capacity means no responsibility. The minimum keeps continuity alive. Fourth, make a closing record. When the window ends, record what was completed, what remained difficult, and what the next action should be. A brief record turns vague memory into usable evidence. Now watch yourself negotiate with your mood. Are we working today? Your mood says, let me check the weather, the energy, the chair, and whether inspiration has sent an official letter. By the time negotiations end, the appointment is gone. Temporary feelings have been promoted into permanent management. No. Feelings may report conditions. They do not possess final authority. Repeat this. I do not have to feel ready when I am structurally prepared. Now identify your minimum. On a difficult day, what action will you still perform? Name it clearly, not do something. Name the smallest responsible behavior that preserves your agreement with purpose. And understand this carefully. Discipline is not punishment. It is not relentless labor, contempt for limits, or the refusal to rest. Rest can be disciplined. Recovery can be scheduled. A wise boundary can protect both the work and the worker. Discipline is stewardship, the faithful management of a purpose you deliberately chose. Every time you keep a reasonable appointment, you gather evidence that your decisions can be trusted. That is how self-trust grows, not through grand declarations, but through kept agreements. Yet one question remains. If you repeat an action faithfully but never examine whether it works, you may become consistent at the wrong behavior. The closing record must now tell the truth. That is the work of feedback. The record produced by discipline is not a trophy. It is evidence. And evidence must be examined because repeated action proves that you acted consistently. It does not prove that the action was effective. This is the fifth law. Feedback turns experience into correction. Feedback is usable information that helps your system distinguish movement from effectiveness. Movement asks, did I perform the promised action? Effectiveness asks, did that action move the intended result? You need both questions. If you measure only activity, you may reward effort that produces no useful movement. If you measure only results, you may condemn a sound action before it has been given sufficient time. Write this down. Feedback protects progress by revealing what should continue, what should change, and what should stop. Think of feedback as a dashboard. A warning signal does not insult the driver. It reports a present condition requiring attention. Or think of it as a mirror. The mirror reveals what is there, but it does not pronounce judgment on the person looking into it. Information becomes destructive only when you convert a result into an identity. You missed the target. That is information. You are a failure. That is condemnation. You kept the appointment. but the result did not move. That is information. Your effort is worthless. That is condemnation. Do not confuse the two. Feedback describes performance, so performance can be adjusted. It does not define your value. Now create a simple scorecard with 2 columns. In the first column, ask, was the promised action performed? In the second, ask, did the intended result move? If the action was not performed, examine execution. Was the appointment unclear, unprotected, unrealistic, or repeatedly displaced? If the action was performed but the result did not move, examine effectiveness. Perhaps the method needs revision. Perhaps the schedule is poorly matched to the work. Perhaps a skill must be strengthened or a resource is missing. Honest measurement keeps you from calling inactivity a strategy and keeps you from calling disciplined activity progress merely because it was difficult. Then conduct a brief review with 3 questions. What happened? State the result without exaggeration or excuse. What contributed to it? Identify the decisions, conditions, strengths, and obstacles that influence the outcome. What should change next? Choose one bounded adjustment you can test in the next cycle. Notice the order. Observe, understand, adjust. Do not panic. Do not hide. Do not redesign your entire life because one attempt disappointed you. A valid purpose should not be discarded merely because a method failed. Revise the method, change the time, improve the skill, secure the needed resource. Feedback may challenge your approach without canceling your assignment. Say this plainly. The result can correct me without condemning me. That is corrective confidence, the humility to face what happened and the courage to change what happens next. But some difficulties exceed an ordinary adjustment. A routine can be corrected. A larger disruption may break the routine completely. When disappointment repeats, loss intervenes, or the path becomes unavailable, the system needs more than feedback. It needs a way back. A system built only for ideal conditions is not yet a durable system. It may function while energy is high, resources are available, and the path remains open. But when life violates the plan, it must know how to recover. This is resilience. The capacity to return, adapt, and continue faithfully after disruption. Resilience is not pretending the disruption did not hurt. It is not denying consequence, rushing grief, or performing strength for an audience. Some losses must be mourned. Some consequences cannot be reversed. Some former paths will never reopen. Courage begins by telling the truth about reality, not by decorating it. But reality contains 3 separate questions. What interruption occurred? What can it teach you? What response remains available now? Do not merge them. The interruption belongs to what happened. The lesson belongs to what can be understood. The response belongs to what you can choose next. You may be unable to change the first and still possess responsibility for the third. Write this down. A setback becomes a stopping place only when the system contains no path of return. So, establish that path before you need it. Use this recovery sequence. First, pause. Stop the frantic reaction that turns one disruption into 10 careless decisions. Second, name the facts. What has actually changed? What has been lost? What remains? State reality without minimizing it and without adding conclusions the facts do not support. Third, protect the essential. Return to purpose and ask what value, responsibility, or relationship must not be abandoned while conditions are difficult. Fourth, choose the smallest responsible restart. Not the most impressive restart. Not the pace you maintained before the disruption. Choose the next action that fits your present reality and preserves faithful movement. Fifth, review after movement resumes. Once you have new evidence, determine whether to increase the pace, revise the method, or continue at the reduced standard. Imagine discovering that the road you plan to use is closed. Wisdom does not sit beside the barrier insisting that the original route must cooperate. Wisdom checks the destination, examines the available roads, and takes an honest detour. The path changes. The purpose does not have to. Now define a fallback standard for difficult seasons. If your normal commitment becomes impossible, what reduced action will keep the assignment alive? Make it humane, specific, and responsible. A fallback standard is not your permanent expectation. It is the agreement that interruption will not automatically become withdrawal. Say this plainly. I can acknowledge what happened and still choose what remains possible. That is realistic courage. Confidence does not come from believing you will never fall, lose, pause, or change direction. It can come from knowing that your system includes a responsible return. But returning is not the final law. Some people become experts at beginning again and never bring the worthy assignment to its intended end. Resilience restores movement. The seventh law must carry that movement to completion. Resilience has returned the assignment to your hands. Now faithful completion must carry it across the agreed finish line. Faithful completion is not merely stopping because you are tired. It is bringing a worthy assignment to its agreed standard, delivering it responsibly, and closing the obligations that remain. The work is not complete merely because you have worked hard. It is complete when the result has been responsibly released to the people and purpose it was meant to serve. Write this down. Effort becomes contribution when it reaches its intended recipient. There are 3 dishonest endings. Abandonment leaves the purpose unserved. Careless release delivers something that violates the necessary standard. Endless polishing keeps improving what never becomes useful. One quits too early. One releases too carelessly. One refuses to release at all. Do you see the danger? Perfectionistic delay can disguise itself as excellence. It says, I am still improving it, when anxiety is actually moving the finish line. Excellence honors the standard. Fear keeps changing it. That is why completion criteria must be established before enthusiasm exaggerates what is possible and before anxiety invents new requirements. Ask in advance what must be present, what quality is necessary, who must approve or receive it, what obligations remain after delivery. How will we know this assignment is closed? A defined standard protects you from both negligence and endless refinement. It tells you when more work is responsible and when more work is avoidance. Now use this closing sequence. First, deliver. Move the completed result from private effort into responsible use. Second, verify. Confirm that it arrived, functions as intended, and satisfies the agreed requirements. Third, document what matters. Preserve the essential decisions, instructions, records, or next responsibilities so the work does not depend on memory. Fourth, acknowledge contributors. Completion with integrity recognizes the people whose labor, patience, counsel, or sacrifice helped carry the assignment. Fifth, extract the lesson. Ask what should be repeated, revised, or refused in the next cycle. Closure does not waste experience. It converts experience into wisdom. Imagine runners completing every difficult portion of a relay, only for the final runner to stop before passing the baton. The training was real. The distance was covered. The fatigue was earned. But what was carried never reached the one meant to receive it. Untransferred effort remains unavailable contribution. Some of you do not need another beginning. You need an honest ending. Name one open commitment now. Does it deserve completion? Then define the remaining standard and finish it. Does reality require renegotiation? Then make the new agreement plainly. Has its purpose ended or become impossible? Then close it honestly instead of allowing silent guilt to occupy your attention. Say it. I will finish faithfully, renegotiate responsibly, or end honestly. Purpose has now traveled through planning, priority, discipline, feedback, resilience, and completion. All 7 laws are established. The final question is how they govern an ordinary day and why the 2 people who began with the same goal did not continue on the same path. Now return to the 2 people who began with the same goal. Both were sincere. Both were excited. Both encountered fatigue, distraction, responsibility, and interruption. Their paths divided because one kept renegotiating action according to emotion, while the other built a pattern that could survive emotion. One waited to feel ready again. The other returned to purpose, consulted the plan, protected the priority, performed the appointed action, reviewed the evidence, recovered after disruption, and brought the commitment to its proper close. Same goal, different government. That is the difference. Watch how the laws connect. Purpose answers why and toward what. Planning answers what must happen next. Priority answers, what receives first claim? Discipline answers, what will I do when feeling changes? Feedback answers, what does the evidence require me to adjust? Resilience answers, how will I return after disruption? Completion answers, how will this work become a finished contribution? 7 laws, 7 different failure points, 1 connected operating system. Remove purpose and movement loses direction. Remove planning and purpose never enters time. Remove priority and the plan is displaced. Remove discipline and priority depends on mood. Remove feedback and repetition may preserve an ineffective method. Remove resilience and disruption becomes withdrawal. Remove completion and sustained effort never fulfills its responsibility. Now understand the boundary. This system cannot command every circumstance. It cannot guarantee approval, opportunity, cooperation, timing, or a favorable external result. But it can make your response more deliberate. Disciplined confidence is not certainty about every outcome. It is clarity about the next faithful response. So do not leave here promising to overhaul your entire life. That promise is usually too vague to govern tomorrow. Diagnose one weak link. Is your purpose unclear? Is your plan absent? Is your priority unprotected? Is discipline collapsing under mood? Is feedback being avoided? Is there no responsible way back? Or is an open commitment waiting for closure? Choose one, not 7, 1. Within the next 24 hours, act at that point. Write the purpose, schedule the next step, protect the priority, perform the minimum action, review one result, establish a restart, or close one open commitment responsibly. Insight without action becomes another admired idea. Action installs the law. Now say this aloud. I am not governed by accident. I am a disciplined steward of purpose. I plan, prioritize, act, review, recover, and finish. I cannot control every outcome, but I can choose my next faithful response. Then teach this chain to someone whose progress you influence. Do not merely admire the system. Practice it, transmit it, and let your ordinary days become evidence of a life governed with purpose.